All right, good evening, everyone. The time is 7:03. I call this meeting to order, and I would ask that everybody in the room stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Absolutely. Mayor Citron,
Present.
Trustee Lindsay,
Present.
Trustee Brooke,
Present.
Trustee Shara.
Participating virtually.
Thank you. And Trustee Shaw.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone in the room and on Zoom. Before I start, I'd like to recognize the presence of the former mayor, David McFadden, who's graced us tonight. Welcome, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
As you all noticed, Chris Kasker is no longer sitting to my left. Instead, we have the honor of having Michelle Lindsay join the board. I am so pleased that she accepted my offer to become a trustee and the deputy mayor. I found Michelle to be hardworking in the years that she put in on the town board, a total of 8 years. She's given much to this village during the 30 years that she's lived here, and now she has the opportunity to work even harder for the village, and I appreciate that. She started most recently by serving as chair of the police search committee. Their work is almost done. Trustee Lindsay will give a brief explanation of the status of the search. I view her as a consensus builder. The reaction I've gotten from members of the community have been glowing and positive, and I wish her much success as a member of this board.
Thank you.
A couple of updates I'd like to give everybody. First of all, I'd like to thank the DPW, and Jeff Voss is in the room, for the outstanding work they did during the last 2 snowstorms, clearing the roads at all hours of the night. They are to be commended for their service to the village. I'd like to thank Michael Haberkorn of East Lake Road, because if you drive south on East Lake Road or north in front of his property, he gave us permission to put up a mirror at the S-curves, which will facilitate motorist viewing around the corner. Those are difficult curves, and there's now a mirror sitting on one of the trees. We'll work out the position of the mirror. I'm not quite sure if that's the perfect spot for it, but I want to thank Mr. Haberkorn for giving us authority to put that mirror on his property. And with respect to the mirror, I'd also like to thank Tate Sink, who several months ago suggested a placement of the mirror, and his suggestion has come to pass, and we thank Master Tate for that suggestion. Some updates on some committees that are not on the agenda. The Cell Committee, chaired by Jedediah Turner. Last Friday, we had a company do a radio frequency evaluation of the village. I accompanied them. They drove the village with their equipment for about 2 hours to determine what type of signal there was throughout the village. It was a 2-hour process. They hit about every road that they could, and they're going to prepare a report. And the purpose of that is to determine where we should put, if we so choose, mini cells on utility poles to, of course, increase cell service to everybody's advantage. So that's the first step. We expect the report shortly from the service that performed the test, and the best part of it is that it was free. We did not have to pay for that particular test. The WEWA Committee is busy preparing for the summer of 2024 at the WEWA Beach. The committee is chaired by Matt Tenari. They have been receiving applications from local youth who wish to work as both checkers and lifeguards. The committee will consider whether this year we self-manage the beach, or we return to a management company, be it the management company that Mayor McFadden hired in 2022 and 2023, or we look for a different company. The season will start in June, and so the committee is hard at work at the present time. And we expect a report from Mr. Tenari shortly with their plans for the summer of 2024. Over the weekend, there were two incidents that I want to report to you. First thing is there was a tree that fell on Village Hall. It's severely damaged. It was on Sunday. It severely damaged the roof over a number of the garages. It did not impact the offices. Immediately, we contacted the insurance broker and the Travelers Insurance Company, which insures the village. There was a claim adjuster here today who did an initial evaluation, authorized repair work to begin, and hopefully that will start as soon as possible. The DPW was authorized to remove the debris and the tree, and we will do our best to repair it as quickly as possible in the manner that befits Village Hall. Another incident that took place on Monday, I want to report to you, there was a rollover of a motor vehicle on Tuxedo Road on the cause, just north of the causeway. It was a significant accident, and I want to thank various first responders. I want to thank the Tuxedo Fire Departments. I want to thank Tuxedo Ambulance. I want to thank Tuxedo Town Police, who all responded immediately to the scene. I'd like to thank our own officers, Officers Serene and Officer Sutherland. Fortunately, the sole occupant of that vehicle, despite the fact that the vehicle overturned and looked crushed to me when I visited the scene, was not severely injured, and we are all thankful and grateful for that. He was taken to the hospital and he's home, and his injuries at the most were very minor. So with that being said, the next item on the agenda is public comment, and I open the floor first to the members of the public who are here tonight, and please let me know if you wish to speak. Mayor McFadden.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is David McFadden. I live at 20 Pepperidge Road. I have a comment and a question. First, Michelle, congratulations. I know I think the village got the best end of this swap, to be honest with you. And I would enjoy serving with you someday if that opportunity ever comes up. I wanted to say something to the chief. I have a longer version that I've sent to TPFYI, which they published, but on behalf of the entire village of Tuxedo Park, thank you for your outstanding service and leadership during your tenure as chief police, which included the COVID-19 pandemic. Leading communities nationwide in safety and security, which we are, is why we have enjoyed high real estate values and attracted many new families to Tuxedo Park over the last several years. Chief, working with you has been an honor and one of the highlights of my time as mayor. Please accept our best wishes and gratitude for your positive impact on the village of Tuxedo Park. I have a question. How much have we earned from our investment in New York class for the taxpayers to date? And then finally, Mayor, you mentioned the WeWa. My recommendation would be to manage it in-house. Last year, I ended up presenting all of the lifeguards that they had hired and paid. And I also found all of the checkers that we paid. And having successfully done that experiment, Denise did a terrific job. She would deliver the new membership to the checkers every week, excuse me. And so that would be my recommendation. I think we can save money. And as long as we have people lined up, I think it's a great idea, especially if we're giving the sons and daughters of residents of the park an opportunity to do so. So thank you very much. My question is about New York class.
I, Mayor, do not have an answer to that question. Does any member of the board have any information on that?
As is per your report, right?
135,000.
135,000. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Mayor, for your endorsement on the in-house management. I
You're
agree with you on that point. Okay. Anyone else? Yes, Professor Hayes.
Yes, I'd like to just speak to you for a few minutes about the climate task force. As I think you all know, the state is committed to reducing greenhouse gases statewide by 40% by the end of this decade. And this community, by action of this board, has joined 400 communities across the state in their attempt to achieve that goal. The task force that your committee set, that your board set up, conducted a greenhouse gas emissions inventory for the year 2018. And one of the results of that inventory showed that over 90% of the greenhouse gas emissions from village government operations and from the community at large came from the use of electricity, the exhaust from vehicles, and finally from the fuel burned to warm and heat houses. So therefore, in order to make substantial reductions in the greenhouse gas emissions, those three categories have to be addressed. In April of 2023, your board adopted a resolution authorizing the village to undertake a government operations climate action plan. And in accordance with that resolution, the task force has prepared a second inventory for the year 2022 of government operation emissions, as well as looking at how other emissions, how those emissions have changed since 2018. Have we made progress? How much year-to-year variability is there in this kind of data? And as part of that report, the task force makes recommendations for how greenhouse gas emissions from the government operations can be reduced by 40% by the end of the decade. This report will be in the hands of all board members within a week's time. There are just a couple of things that need to be checked at this point, but that will be done before the middle of next week. So the recommendations are numerous. We've already made some progress. The police department has replaced gas burning vehicles with hybrids. John Ledwith and Jeff have replaced fuel burning or oil burning furnaces in the DPW shop with propane. That has reduced greenhouse gases. So we've measured what those reductions have been, and so they're part of the goal, but much more needs to be done. And I'm not going to go into the details now of all the recommendations that we make, but they involve both solar panels, investigating certainly the feasibility of putting hydroelectric power on the Weewa Dam. There is a tube through the dam that could be used for that purpose, and replacing oil burning furnaces or even propane burning furnaces with heat pumps in a number of buildings. So what because of the melange, because of the number of things, the task force does recommend that you investigate working with the New York Power Authority, who will do audits, who will manage the changes that are recommended or you decide to make, and oversee the operations, which I think could be very useful, but it's your decision. But as far as the audits and the upfront things are concerned, if you decide not to have them manage the changes, there'll be no charge. So you can, but of course they will tell you what the charges will be if you do tend to go ahead. So that's all for the moment. What I would like to, or what I will do if you wish, is at subsequent meetings, because we're in budget season now, at subsequent meetings, I will try and bring to you the ways that the state and federal government will help pay for the various changes that are recommended, or that you you decide to do. And so that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. I just want to note that I've asked Deputy Mayor Lindsay and Trustee Shara to work with you on these matters. So feel free to contact them, or they'll contact you.
Well, that's wonderful.
thank
I'm
you.
so, I told you in an email how pleased I am at your decision. And Michelle and I have been working together on this now for several years because she's been doing the same kind of thing for the town.
Yes.
And so this is a huge asset for this kind of work.
Thank you, Professor.
I just have to say, Jim has been working so hard on this. It's so commendable. So it's been wonderful to work with you and to learn from you as well.
Good. Okay. Mr. Lynch?
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Ryan Lynch, 217 Westlake Road. First of all, welcome to our new trustee, Lindsay,
Thank you.
and Happy New Year to everyone. On December 19th, I received a letter from the members of this board regarding the ethics code, asking me to sign. I did start serving in June of 23, but have just received this now, and I just had a few questions regarding section 15-3. I'd like to ask for clarification on that section. Hypothetically, let's say after being appointed that someone who has business before the town through a dinner party on my behalf, or we could take it a step further and say that they have open litigation with the town. Would I be in violation of the standards of conduct if I accepted their hospitality exceeding $25?
Jared, did you hear the question posed by Mr. Lynch?
I did, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Lynch. If you could send to me an email, I'd like to have that in writing and make sure that I answer it accurately and specifically. And I'm glad to get that to you quickly too. So if you have any questions between now and then, certainly don't hesitate to give me a call.
My only follow-up question would be, if I was in violation of that ethics, what would the recourse for that be for violating section 15-3 of our code of ethics in chapter 15 of the town code?
Again, I turn to you, Jared, as the attorney for the village.
Reading from the code, Mayor, section 15-6, penalties for offenses. In addition to any penalty contained in any other provision of law, any person who shall knowingly and intentionally violate any of the provisions of this code may be fined, suspended, or removed from office or employment, as the case may be, in the manner provided by law.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
I have a little question. I don't recall being asked to put my name onto any of this board of.
I have it here if you'd like to see it.
Yeah, I don't recall that. And my question is, did every single board member of every single volunteer committee
Top right,
receive that?
the trustees are.
I just.
Think, that's something that I send out, so if you didn't get one, I do it once a year. I know that Mr. Lynch just said he started in June. And I'm just so busy, I pick 1 month a year to do it every year, and I just catch up with whoever's come on board since then. So I did it in December, and according to my records, if you must have sent it back already.
Oh, no, you sent one to me, but I mean, this is coming from us.
Oh,
From us to Mr. Lynch here, like my name is on here, Paul Brook, Josh Scherer, and the mayor and Chris Kasker. I was not aware that my name was on this. And then my question is, does it go to every single person on every single board?
I don't know. I just know I sent out the code of ethics. Maybe I made a mistake with it. But I sent that out in the sexual harassment training email.
This brings up a point I'd like to address to Jared. In a conversation, we discussed a board of ethics for the village. Would you be able to briefly explain what that would be and whether it would be appropriate for our village?
Certainly. Many villages do establish their own board of ethics. They also adopt a model code of ethics. The state promulgates a form model code that I'm glad to share with the board, and a proposed law describing the composition of typical boards of ethics and what their duties and responsibilities may be. But to case in point, Mr. Lynch's request would typically, if there was a Board of Ethics that was constituted within the village, he would write to the Board of Ethics with his concern. It would be done anonymously, and he would have a response from the Board of Ethics. So it ensures a level of objectivity, consistency, privacy. Board of Ethics opinions are published, you know, albeit in redacted form, so that folks, residents of the village and others can look at prior decisions of a Board of Ethics and use that information to help guide them in making decisions, both in their capacities as employees of the village or elected officials.
I think that's probably an issue that we should look at in the near future. And we will put it on the agenda for the next board meeting in February, and everyone will be free to comment on whether we should create a Board of Ethics for this village.
Thank you for your time. And Elizabeth, thank you for your efforts. Greatly appreciated.
I would add two things. Decision about creating a Board of Ethics is one decision. The second is the wording of the actual guidelines, okay? And I think it would be useful if we put that on the agenda. We have from Jared a sense of what the outlines are, what, how to think about it. I'm sort of against government for government's sake.
I agree.
I don't think there are huge ethical issues that have emerged here, but, and I'm all in favor of an ethics process. But all I'm saying is I want to see what it is. I also think anytime a notice is sent out by the trustees, the trustees should be aware of that notice, because it's the first I heard that notice was sent out. But that's fine. We'll put it on the agenda for the next meeting.
We'll whether it be the Board of Ethics or review and discussion of the Code of Ethics, we will put it on the February agenda. All right, any other speakers in the room? Mayor, would you like a second chance?
If I could swap my 3 minutes.
Of course, Mayor.
Great, thank you. I do have to run. There is a Board of Ethics that Orange County has, county level. We've considered that before, and we are allowed to bring matters to them. Seems to me that would be a terrific impartial board to present any serious issues to. Also, I recently received from the courts, it was the last lawsuit that Claudio had filed against myself and the prior board for ethics violations, sunshine violations, very accusatory, sought damages, and that was just rejected in whole by the courts. So there is no longer any pending lawsuits against myself from Claudio. I'm very excited about that. I'm very excited that it was shot down. Unfortunately, in addition to the 300 we're seeking, there's probably going to be additional fees, because I believe that our village attorney is handling that case, and certainly may or may not have put in all those fees. I also understand that we lost our attempt to recoup fees. And so the taxpayer is looking at over $300,000 based on these frivolous lawsuits, which is a shame. I also noticed that on the agenda, Josh is not listed as where he is, and therefore he is not allowed to vote.
Sorry, that was my mistake. I'm sorry.
But this is exactly what Claudio sued us for. So that's why I bring it up, just to caution everyone that it is not on the agenda. And there was no agenda posted at the front or south gate today, unfortunately. But this is what we were sued for by Claudio. one of the motions was that, in fact, Josh voted illegally because it wasn't announced. So let's be careful we don't do that again tonight. Thank you very much, everyone. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much for the job you're doing. I do have to run. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. All right, yeah, no, we'll move now to a public comment on the Zoom meeting. Yes, let me see, I have a hard time looking at this screen. Who has their hand up?
I think it's Jim Ashoni.
Okay, Officer Ashoni, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, Mayor. I could barely hear you guys, but thank you,
Go ahead.
Mayor, and the board members for the opportunity to speak. I'd like to express my heartfelt gratitude for the privilege of working on the Chief Conklin. Dave, it's been an honor to serve as part of your team. And I want to convey my appreciation for your commitment to upholding the values of integrity, professionalism, and community service within our department. Working alongside you has truly been a pleasure. Thank you for your exceptional service and the positive influence you've had on our organization. And I wish you nothing but the best in your retirement. Enjoy, and thank you.
Chief, you may respond, of course.
Thank you, Officer Shoney. That really means a lot to me. And I want to thank Mayor McFadden for his kind words as well.
Okay, Chief, thank you. You'll be able to give a report in a few moments. Anybody else on Zoom wish to make any public comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to comments by the Deputy Mayor and the Trustee. Deputy Mayor Lindsay, you have the floor.
Oh, thank you. And Mayor, I'd like to thank you for appointing me to serve the remainder of Chris Casker's term. I also want to thank the trustees and everyone in the village office for all their help in making this transition so smooth. I've had the opportunity to work with each of you on various village issues, and I look forward to serving the village together with you all. I appreciate the kind messages I've received from the residents as well. Very comforting. Just as a recap, I ran for town board to work on.
We've always been friends throughout my whole career. And I meant every.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. When I ran for the town board 8 years ago, there were 3 issues that were of utmost importance to me. The Tuxedo Reserve Special Permit, revitalization of the hamlet, and building better relations between the town residents and the village residents. During my 8 years on the town board, as Jim was saying, I became involved with New York State's Climate Smart and Clean Energy programs to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and to achieve the state's goals. And I've worked closely with Jim, who's the village's committee chair. I will continue to serve as the town's chair for Climate Smart Committee, and together we'll get a lot of things done for both the town and the village. In fact, Jim and I are going to meet next week with NYSERDA, the state agency that administers the programs for clean energy and climate to help us move forward with getting our actions actually put into place. So I will also continue to work on the hamlet revitalization with the town board, especially with council member Deirdre Murphy. And together through all of these actions, I hope we can continue to build connections between the town and the village.
Thank you very much. Trustee Brooke.
Nothing.
Trustee Shaw.
I just wanted to thank Chief Conklin for all you've done these years. I wish you the best of luck and in your retirement and enjoying your grandchildren. And also thank you for clarifying for the town, for the village residents, that conversation actually did take place between, you know, having changes to the police department. I'm glad we got that clarified. So good luck and thank you.
Trustee Scherer.
Yeah, just a few things. First of all, I want to commend you, Mayor, for selecting Michelle Lindsay. I can't think of a better replacement for Chris. Chris will be missed, but Michelle, with her experience in the town, the focus on improving relations between the town and the village, I think is critical. I think she's perfect for that. All of the experience she has on the Climate Smart Task Force, working with Jim Hayes as a town representative, now as a village representative, it's critical. The community choice aggregation work. I just think it was a really fantastic choice, and really excited, Michelle, that you're joining us, and excited that we can work together with Jim to hopefully implement a lot of the projects that will benefit this community. And I'd like to just echo, Michelle, what you said about Jim. I think Jim does a tremendous amount of work for this community. I don't think people fully appreciate how much work is involved. It happens behind the scenes, but it's all critical towards what we're doing to just be a more environmentally friendly community, but it also has a big economic impact. I mean, there are grants and other incentives that we have access to, all communities do, but it takes work to actually go and check all the boxes that are necessary to access those funds. Again, I just want to acknowledge Jim's efforts and echo what Michelle said. And then lastly, Chief Conklin, been a real pleasure working with you. Wish you the best of luck in your retirement. You will be missed. So anyway, that's it. Just wanted to compliment a bunch of people. And again, Michelle, really looking forward to working with you.
Thank you so much, Josh.
Okay, that completes the trustee comments, the opening comments. We'll move on to the reports. The court report is attached to the record. The next is a report from our departing police chief, David Conklin. Chief Conklin.
Good evening. First, I'd like to thank Trustee Shaw, Trustee Scherer, and Mayor McFadden for your kind words. It's been a pleasure working with all of you as well. My monthly report for December, we had 212 calls for service, 1 property damage accident. We issued 9 traffic tickets and 13 warnings for vehicle stops. Fire calls, we had 4. 2 intrusion alarms we responded to. We assisted the town of Tuxedo Police Department twice, and they assisted us 1 time. We patrolled 2,801 miles, and approximately 624 vehicles came in through the main gate and the south gate during that month.
Thank you, Chief. Next, Supervisor Jeff Voss will give us the DPW report.
It was a busy month with heavy rains, clearing drains, plowing snow, salting ice.
Can everybody hear this report on Zoom? Are you able to hear, folks? You can? Okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But other than that, we've picked up Christmas trees, filled potholes. We plowed and salted the roads January 6th and 7th and January 16th. As you mentioned earlier, the mirror we installed on East Lake Road, and also the installing the tarp on the roof of the village office on Monday. We worked on the plows and the sanders and the trucks after the storms. Cleared snow away from the basins after the last snow before the heavy rains. Took down the Christmas lights at the front gate. For water and sewer, finished the 4th quarter meter readings. I just received, a list of malfunctioning meters today from Denise. I think there are 3 throughout the system, so John Bello will get to those very quickly here.
Question on that one. What does it mean the pad was removed from a meter?
I don't have the list with me, but
One said meter missing and now the pad stopped working and then the third one is pad was removed.
it could be a house that's under construction.
I don't think so, but I just was curious what that
Yeah,
meant
I'm
when the
not
pad was
sure. I
removed.
just received a list
Yeah.
from Denise today.
Okay.
I'll find out though. We've had one of the chemical lines at the water plant that we keep having blockages on, so we've had to clear that several times. I think it may have to do with one or two of the unit heaters in that filter room, because it's so cold in there with the cold water constantly running through it. Need to be replaced, which we'll be doing within the next couple days. Hopefully that will take care of that problem. We cleared a sewer blockage at the Mahan residence. We fixed a water main break, which just before last month's meeting, under Route 17, which was a big leak.
You guys deserve a lot of credit for that. I saw the photos of what you guys had to do in the tunnel. And it was extraordinary.
Yeah. Various markouts for Dig Safe New York, cleaned up, did a leak cleanup at the Ridge Road storage tanks. That's basically it.
Thank you, Jeff. Any questions for Jeff other than none? Okay, we move on next to the building department, and that would be John.
Just in summary, we have one request for a C of O for 72 Lookout Road. We have one violation currently before the court. The Young property at 44 Tower Hill Loop. We're waiting for updated plans so the BAR could hopefully address what is needed to resolve the issue in that location. A number of inspections were performed during the month of December. No major problems. The BAR approved a few small projects last night at the Bremen House, the Schmidberger House, and the Ramos House on Clubhouse Road. These were all projects that were approved previously. They had come back to make some minor alterations to all 3 of those projects. The Perna project on Lookout Stable Road, they've started to install the structural beams for the house. We've had some other issues. We had some drainage issues up on Mountain Farm Road, so we notified Mr. Overton and the neighbors on Ivy Road. Apparently the neighbors are responsible for Ivy Road, so they've been advised of that. And the icing condition on the road has been temporarily resolved. I've been in touch with Orange and Rockland. They did finally get back to me today about the issue we discussed briefly this morning, where there was a wire that has fallen quite low in front of somebody's driveway, and I'm hoping O&R will be there tomorrow if they haven't been already. The Kilgore project, interior, a fairly large interior renovation, going fairly well. They're going to remove some propane tanks in the spring. Tuxedo Park Properties, we had an issue there where the neighbor claims that they had deposited some material on his property. The owner of 76 Summit Road says that he did not place debris on that property. That's really a civil issue. I have no knowledge of who put the rock and soil, on Mr. Palm's property. You mentioned the tree on the road. The insurance adjuster was here today. He assured me we'll have his report within a week and a half at the most.
Can we begin repairs without his report? Can we hire contractors? This is sort of an emergency procurement because rather than going through the normal channels, we need to get the roof repaired. At some point it's going to rain and we don't know if the tarp's going to hold.
I leave that up to the village board on how we want to proceed.
Yeah.
I don't have any strong feeling otherwise.
Okay.
DPW is going to remove the materials.
Yes,
around
of
it,
course,
so-
but it's still going to leave a heavily damaged roof.
I think, I don't think you need to go through anything if you're repairing an existing structure that's been damaged, because you're not changing the structure, you're just repairing it.
Well, I was referring to the procurement, which requires you to get 3 bids. You know, this is an emergency situation, which,
I'm sure
Yeah.
Jared can help us.
Jared, yeah, can you chime in on whether, under the circumstances, a damaged roof that's open to the sky, we're permitted to do an emergency procurement to make that repair?
I'll look into that immediately and get right back to you. I'm looking at it now.
Because it looks like, based on what I saw, and now it's snow covered, so it's hard to figure out, but I was there on Sunday when the damage occurred. It looks like a substantial amount of work. Would you agree, Jeff?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a big job, so it would exceed the procurement requirements if we were to be taking our time and just repairing a roof, okay?
And I assume, because it's a couple of times we failed to do it, filed insurance forms on that.
Yes, the insurance company was adjusted the day that it occurred. And the adjuster actually came today to take pictures and put together his report.
Yeah, I contacted the insurance company on Sunday. They got back to me on Monday, and,
Yeah, I'm just checking that it's done.
yeah.
Because, you know, when the police booth was damaged, nobody ever filed claims, and that could have been covered by insurance, but it wasn't.
the bad news on this claim is there's a $2,500 deductible. We're gonna have to foot that.
2,500, it's cheap relative to the total cost.
Well, yeah, it's going to be, but you know, I'm used to a $500 automobile deductible, not 2,500, but be that as it may. Okay.
That concludes my report.
Okay, thank you very much. Water Department is attached to the record. Elizabeth, is it because of the changeover on our systems, our QuickBooks systems, that the treasurer reports are not available?
That's correct. We have not been able to enter any information into QuickBooks since December 1st. So everything has been held back. However, tomorrow we're going to, I think, get everything set up so that we can start entering things and catch up for lost time.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions for Elizabeth on that point? No? Okay, that concludes the oral and written reports. So let me make a motion, be it resolved that the board add all written reports to the permanent record. Do I have a second on that?
I'll second.
Second by the deputy mayor, all in favor. And I'm sorry, let me withdraw that. Jared, you heard the former mayor state that trustee Scherer, because of a clerical error, cannot vote. Is that true or not true?
No, that's respectfully and with deference to the court, we take issue with respect to the court's decision on that. There is no statutory requirement that the location of a board member participating remotely be identified in the meeting notice or in the agenda.
Okay, good news. So, Josh, you're free to vote on this motion and every other motion. Okay,
Great.
all in favor of adding all written reports to the permanent record, please say aye.
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 Unanimous, Elizabeth, 5-0. Okay, next is approval of the meeting minutes. Has everybody had a chance to review the December 20th, 2023 meeting minutes?
Yes.
Any changes requested?
No, I already sent them to Elizabeth.
And
The typo.
Okay. I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from December 20th, 2023. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Brooke. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll abstain.
And I was going to say with the first, oh, I'm sorry, never mind. Yeah, so trustee Lindsay's abstaining. I just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
And I'm going to abstain as well. I wasn't there.
The vote is
Okay.
3-0, sufficient to carry the motion.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, who seconded that? I'm sorry.
That was trustee Brooke.
Thank you very much.
All right, old business. Update on proposal to reduce the village speed limit to 25 miles an hour and traffic safety. We're still seeking proposals from traffic engineers. We have one. Hopefully we'll have a second one relatively shortly, and then a third one that I will then distribute to the board, and they can review them, and we can discuss whether we want to proceed with any of those particular studies and consider the proposed reduction in traffic speed limit that I made, several meetings ago to 25 miles an hour. So we'll, move on to the next, and that is,
I'd like to make two comments
Oh,
on that,
sure.
right? Two comments. First is my general belief is if things are working efficiently, you don't have to fix them. And I don't see any huge problems with the speed limit. The second thing is, it's critical when we get these bids, we have a bid associated with them. I heard that the price for that study was gonna be in the zip code of $40,000, which is a huge number. And, so I look forward to discussing it later, but I think it should be part of the record that
yeah.
$40,000 to explore that might be a.
I would agree that 40,000 is too much, but the scope of work was not properly defined. In terms of the study, the scope of work for that $40,000 proposal included a study of all the village roads. And, I don't believe that we need to have an engineer look at all the village roads. I think there are maybe a handful or less of roads that might require a review, and that would substantially reduce the cost, but I appreciate your
Yeah, well,
objection.
let's just wait and see.
Yeah.
We're continuing to work on it. You
Yep.
know, again, from my perspective, when I spoke to you the other day, that car that flipped over did not appear to be a speed issue. It apparently had veered across the road, hit one of the rocks and flipped, right?
That's what I was told by the
Yeah,
officers.
so
I
both
didn't
on the same
investigate
zip
it.
code,
Yeah.
so I'm just trying to understand what the facts are.
Okay.
Keep going.
Yeah,
Yep.
I would agree with that, and I think one of the things that we have not discussed, I mean, I agree with Paul, 30 miles an hour, I mean, to reduce it to 25 after the study, I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I think that you could, in fact, the places where it is a little more precarious, where you have to drive slower, put one of those electronic speed limit things. I mean, that thing makes me stop right away in town when I'm going, it's blinking what your speed limit is. I think that's much more effective. And when we've had it around in the park, moving it around, I think that makes you pay attention
Yeah.
to how you're driving. And each one of those is, it's like 3,000, I think is what that one cost for the village. And I think they're very effective, frankly.
There's probably grants that we could apply to. But that's a function of the new chief, but your turn is next.
Oh,
Well, I would respond by saying, Chief Conklin and I, agree on one thing, and that was, that the, reduction in the speed limit to 25 is appropriate, and I respect his opinion. Obviously, I respect it even more because we agree on that. But, it remains to be seen. We will discuss it, and, we'll see, whether we can reach a consensus or not. But it's a little premature until we get those proposals in
Fully
front of
agree.
us.
I have a
Okay.
question. Did the current RFP go out for all villages, or did it get narrowed to specific roads rather?
It was narrowed to specific
Okay,
roads.
okay.
Yeah, less than 5.
Okay.
Okay, all right. Police Chief Search Committee, I turn to Deputy
Okay.
Mayor Lindsay to give us a brief update on where the committee is.
Yes, as I reported last month, Trustee Brooke and at the time Trustee Casker, Dan Sutherland, and myself were conducting interviews. And as we all know, Chief Conklin, you're a hard act to follow, but we're doing our best. We did have 5 interviews, and we are now in the process of waiting for civil service to come back to us with our next steps on how we would like to move forward in making an offer. So we hopefully will hear by the end of this week from civil service, but we want to follow all the steps that they ask us to follow.
Yeah, it is a rigid system, and we have to follow that system. Yeah, okay, thank you very much. The next item is a website accessibility discussion. We had tried to put that on the Zoom call at the last meeting, and we had some technical issues.
Teed up, I think it works.
Okay, we'll give it another try.
I think that sitting and presenting at a city council meeting would be a lot more fun than dealing with the craziness of 7 grade boys. But for the last year, hey everybody, in Village of Tuxedo Park, my apologies in advance that I wasn't able to be there live. I volunteer with 7th and 8th grade boys every Wednesday.
All right, hold on.
Sometimes
Okay.
I think that sitting and
second.
presenting at a
Okay,
city
turn
council
it off.
meeting would be a lot more fun.
I'm trying,
than
I'm
dealing with the
trying.
craziness of
All right.
7th.
Here
All
we go.
right, accept trustee Brooks' recommendation. We got an echo.
I know.
Hold on.
Yes.
There you go.
Still have an echo. All right, yeah, great. I will accept trustee Brooks' recommendation. We'll table this again, possibly trying again on the third is either the charm or it's strike 3. We'll see in February. Okay, item D under old business is modify resolution 20-12, authorizing Tuxedo Joint Fire District reappointments. I believe there was an error in our December resolution. Elizabeth, do you understand why we're reviewing this again?
Yes, because I had the wrong name in there. I had the one from the previous year. I'm very embarrassed and I apologize.
That's
This
okay.
one has the right names.
Okay. Obviously,
Sorry.
we want to reappoint the right people, so I'm going to make a motion be it resolved that the Board of Trustees authorize the Tuxedo Joint Fire District to reappoint Commissioners Peter Deedel and Jason Poggioli to 5-year terms beginning retroactively January 1st, 2024 and ending December 31st, 2028. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Shaw. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous 5-0. Okay, item E, interesting. As everyone is aware, the Board of Trustees approved transferring control of the village elections from the village clerk to the county board of elections. And all necessary paperwork was filed by the village attorney, and we received a response from the Board of Elections, which said, well, we're really kind of busy in June with primary season. We would respectfully request that you consider changing your election calendar to November. So upon receipt of that, I took the position, and we'll have a free and fair discussion on it, that one of the reasons we have elections in June in the village of Tuxedo Park, and the only other municipality that has June elections I would notice is the town of Palm Tree or the village of Curious Joel, is because that is the time of year when most of our residents are here. And I'm always looking, from my perspective, to serve democracy, to have more people vote than less people. The bigger the turnout, the better I feel about our electoral system. And from my perspective as the mayor, and it's just an individual opinion, is that we're more likely to get people voting in a June election than we would in a November election. Second, in the November election, our village election will be lost on the ballot.
Yep.
This year, you've got a presidential election. Sometimes it's a senatorial election or a congressional election. And our lines for mayor or trustee will be at the very bottom of the ballot. Our campaign will be lost in the federal elections or the state elections. And because historically, Tuxedo Park elections have been important to the community, and people pay attention. It's important that we do it at a time of year when everyone is available, everyone is listening, and everyone has a chance to participate. So that's my opinion. I would respond to the Board of Elections and say, we want to keep them in June. It's the best time of year to have elections in this village. I'll now turn it over to the other members of the board to express their opinion. Deputy Mayor Lindsay.
Okay, I would agree with you that in this community, June is the best time. And the Board of Elections is requesting it, but That's, we could just reply that this is what serves our community and for participation purposes, which I would think they would want to support.
I agree,
Trustee Brooke?
I agree with you.
Trustee-
I agree 100%. I mean, I don't even want it to go to the Board of Elections, but definitely keep it to June because otherwise it totally is a disservice to the community. So
Trustee Scherer?
Agreed with all of you.
All right, under those circumstances, a unanimous opinion,
Huh? Is that you?
Attorney Cashow, would you draft an appropriate response to the commissioners of the Board of Elections advising them that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tuxedo Park unanimously believes that we are going to maintain our June election schedule? Would you be able to?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much.
I should mention that Jared just sent an email out that we can proceed with the repair of the roof without getting 3 bids.
Oh, thank you. All right. So just let me know publicly, we're going to move on the repair of the roof. Jared did the research as an emergency procurement, and I would ask you, John and Jeff, to move on that.
And Mayor, for the record, the circumstances described earlier vis-a-vis the damage done to Village Hall, a public building, in representing damage to the public building, I'm specifically referring to General Municipal Law, Section 103, Subdivision 4, which provides, notwithstanding the provisions of Subdivision 1 of this section, in the case of a public emergency arising out of an accident or other unforeseen occurrence or condition whereby circumstances affecting public buildings, public property, or the life, health, safety, or property of the inhabitants of a public political subdivision or district therein require immediate action which cannot await competitive bidding or competitive offering, contracts for public work, or the purchase of supplies, material, or equipment may be let by the appropriate officer, board, or agency of a political subdivision or district therein.
Okay, thank you very much for that explanation. So we'll move forward as expeditiously as possible to repair the roof of this building. The next item is the Water Infrastructure Improvement Act grant application. It was my understanding that while we were approved, there is no money available for the grant. Is that correct, Elizabeth?
Yes, my understanding is the same, and that seems to be the response that we got from them, which are all the letters are posted on the website.
Okay, so that's unfortunate, but do we have to renew our application for the fall, for this year or for the next year in the event that there's a source of funding for these grants? Do you know, Elizabeth?
I don't know. I would put that question to Joe Zongel from
Okay.
Weston Sampson.
Well, that's good because the deputy mayor and I are meeting with Joe tomorrow on a Microsoft Teams call. So we will put that exact question to him and we'll have an answer for the other board members. in
Good.
terms of, grant money. Okay. The last item on old business is an RFP for milfoil divers. Just for the record, this was on the agenda for last month. Trustee Scherer, who's leading the charge on this, was not available, so we tabled it to this month. So Trustee Scherer, would you like to take the lead on this particular proposal?
Sure, happy to. I mean, there's I think there were documents that were filed and are publicly available describing the RFP and the purpose of the RFP. The short version is that when we, I guess it was last year or the year before, as everyone remembers, we had a very severe Eurasian water milfoil issue in all 3 lakes. We applied an agent to those lakes. The good news is, based on a survey that was done by our consulting firm, it looks like milfoil has almost been entirely eliminated from all 3 lakes. But, and there is a but, it appears that there may be some near the village boat dock. There's a few reasons for that. I think when they applied the agent, they had to stay away from that area. Regardless, divers, we need these divers to come in, confirm whether or not there is milfoil. If there is, to remove it by hand. And you know, this fight with the Eurasian water milfoil is going to be an ongoing fight. And when we applied the agents, the chemical agents a couple of years ago, I think there was an understanding as part of that discussion that this is going to be an ongoing fight. We couldn't use divers at that point in time given the cost. I think everyone's preference is to use divers to the extent it's affordable, rather than putting chemical agents in our water supply, even though everything suggests that it is more than safe and approved by, you know, all the various government authorities. So that is a very long-winded way of saying we should get this RFP out ASAP. I'd wanted it to go out in November. These diving companies are very difficult to schedule. It candidly may already be too late. I hope it's not, but we should get this out so that we can get a crew in. I think we wanted it, Elizabeth, for end of May, or end of April, early May, that time frame. So anyway, I strongly recommend we get this approved tonight, and move forward with it.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Scherer. Deputy Mayor Lindsay, you're quite familiar with RFPs. Could you explain just generally the process by which we would move forward with it?
Well, the way the town does it is that, you know, obviously for projects that would cost over a certain threshold, we have usually our engineer or our town planner prepare the RFP with the attorney, so we all can agree on the wording that what we're asking people to bid on is exactly what we want. And then once we get that wording done, then we put it out, we post it on the website, we contact firms that we know are in the business, and then we set a bid opening date, and we have a site visit date. And the site visit is so all the potential bidders can come and have a look and ask questions. And you have to be careful. One thing is that you have to make sure all bidders have all the information. You can't say one bidder calls and asks a question on a date that's not the site date. Then you have to make sure you let all the other bidders know the question and the answers that were provided. So it's easiest if they all come on the site visit date and all questions can be answered. And then you have a bid opening date.
Now, RFP, request for proposal, because we put one out, do we have to accept a proposal?
No, you don't have to if it's, you know, way more than you were anticipating, but hopefully you would know ahead of time.
Yeah, I would add, you know, in deference to Josh having worked on it, when we looked at the divers issue 2 years ago, the judgment was the divers were expensive and quite ineffective.
I understand.
No, that's Paul, with all due respect, that's not factual. Yes, they are expensive. It's not that they're not effective. They couldn't have been effective with the extent of the milfoil that we had at the time. That would have been prohibitively expensive. But they are very effective when you have a limited amount of milfoil in place.
You know, Josh, you know more about it than I do. I remember doing it, and I think one of the inputs when we have it in front of us should be the people who provide the chemical treatment, because they had looked at experience in other communities where there has been stuff pulled. And my recollection is in their presentation when we approved it, they said it was not particularly effective. All I'm saying is put out the RFP. When we make the decision, I'd like to have the input of the chemical sources that we use too, because they've been effective and very inexpensive relative to this stuff. And you know, I also,
Uh,
after you know, milfoil emerges late in the season. Can you see it in April? Do we know what that, I mean, I just don't know what the time, the optimal time to do this is, because milfoil doesn't emerge until late in the year.
So I would recommend at our next meeting that we bring in AJ Rays, our lake consultant, to address, I think, some of the concerns you've raised and provide some facts so that we can have an intelligent conversation around this. And also, you know, I think arm us with the information we need to make a decision once we actually get proposals. So I would recommend let's add AJ to the next meeting to give us his input and perspective.
Well, Josh, you said that chemicals weren't appropriate at the village boat docks. So
Correct.
it seems a small, that you're limiting the area for the divers, which seems a very good way to address
Yeah.
it, so that
And
it doesn't spread.
And the reason for limiting it around that boat dock is, my understanding is that's where the water intake is for the filtration. And again, like AJ can provide more specifics. I'm clearly not an expert in the area. I don't want to pretend to be. But he is the expert, and you know, we've been relying on his advice on this matter. So again, I'd encourage us just to listen to what he has to say and just get it on the record and make sure everyone's equally informed.
Can we draft the RFP so we can agree that it addresses the issues we want addressed?
That's what's on the village website is the draft of the RFP, and I think from my perspective it looks comprehensive. Again, it was drafted by AJ, reviewed by myself and I believe Jim Hayes, and it was discussed between AJ, myself, and Jim Hayes. So what you see is the proposed draft. Again, our hope was to get that RFP out to potential bidders at the end of November. And, you know, now we're looking at getting it out at the end of January. And my concern, as I stated earlier, is we need these divers in April or May. We need to get this out. It's not a complicated RFP. Again, it's been in the public domain for a while now.
Just to clarify, Josh, the water intake is down at the Village Boat Club, not the Club Boat Club, right?
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. And that's where the divers would be working, Paul.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so we're gonna vote on that?
All right, yeah. Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees authorize Village Clerk Doherty to advertise for bids for milfoil divers pursuant to the previously drafted RFP. Would you like to make that motion, Josh?
Sure. Do I need
Okay,
to?
And,
Yep.
no,
Go
that's
ahead.
fine. Who will
Okay.
second?
I'll second. Oh, go ahead.
Doesn't matter.
Trustee Brooks seconds. All in favor of issuing an RFP on the milfoil divers, state aye. See, how many ayes?
Aye.
Aye, aye. Unanimous. Josh, you're voting aye, of course, so it's unanimous.
Of course,
Thank
yes, I am.
All right. Next item, new business now. Authorize the mayor to sign a municipal advisor services agreement with Munistat. We now have the benefit of a trustee that has a long and storied history in municipal finance and the financial services industry generally. And I would like Deputy Mayor Lindsay to discuss this and make a recommendation as to how we should proceed. In other words, should we sign the agreement? Should we look for alternatives? What's your opinion on this?
Well, the agreement is only if we use their services, so that's a good thing. And And when I first looked at this, I thought, well, there are other firms that I can name two others that work in the Hudson Valley area that maybe we should at least look at what their fees would be if we were to use them. So we could do that. We could table this till next month. I did find out today when working with Tinka that Unistat was the firm that did the bond financing for the dam. So,
Sure if they did.
oh, you're not,
I'm
oh,
not sure.
okay.
No, I think
okay.
it may have been another one. In fact, it was another, I believe another firm, correct me if I'm wrong, like a big firm that was not very responsive.
Okay.
And somehow, I forget how we got connected with Munistat, but their response is terrific. And I think what they do now, our agreement, I believe, is around $1,200 a year. They review, we have to file things for all our old bonds
Yes.
that we had not been doing. But
Yeah,
they
that
do
has
it
to be done
automatically.
annually.
Yeah, and so they do that for us. So that's how I've been involved with him on this. But they're very responsive compared to who we had before. So.
Well, if you'd like, we could review the two others that we've worked with in the town. And then just review all.
Let me
Two or
ask Elizabeth, is there any urgency to signing this agreement, or can we look at the possibility of other providers and make a decision in February?
I don't think there's any urgency. They haven't approached me about getting a signed copy yet.
I would then table this to allow Deputy Mayor Lindsay to investigate other providers of similar services, and then we can come back and make a decision in February. New business B, accept resignation of Police Chief Conklin, whose last day will be February 24th. Chief, I give you the opportunity now to speak on the letter of resignation that you submitted recently to the Board of Trustees, and anything else you want to discuss with respect to your service to the village.
Thank you, Mayor. So basically, I wrote a letter that is published in TPFYI, announcing my resignation. And, if anybody wants to read that, you're more than welcome to. And I just want to thank the board and all the residents who have shown unwavering support. It's been a pleasure working here, and I wish everybody the best of luck.
Thank you, Chief. It's my understanding, Chief, that you have a badge with your late brother's number on it. Is that true?
I have a chief badge.
Does that chief badge, I was told that the chief badge has some reference to your late brother. Is that true or not?
That is not true. It just says chief on it.
All right, I was going to offer that you certainly can keep that badge and put it on a plaque or whatever you deem appropriate to thank you for your service.
Thank you.
You did not have to return that badge. Okay?
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You bet, sir. All right. Next item, approve New York State FOLA membership.
I'm sorry,
for 950.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Oh,
Do
I'm
we,
sorry. Yeah,
do we usually,
I missed
yeah, sorry.
that. Okay. Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees accepts the resignation of Police Chief David Conklin as of February 24th, 2024. I'll make the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Shaw. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Unanimous. Thank you, Chief. All right. Next is approved New York State FOLA membership for 950. This is the water quality testing that's done during the warm months. It's handled by Frank Peverly's wife, whose first name escapes me. Thank you. They go out into the lake with volunteers. They drop various items into the water, pull up samples, and then send the samples for testing and provide us with a report. I have asked the newly appointed lake wardens, one for each lake, plus Lake Warden Yanuzzi, to provide their services to Ms. Peverly so that this work can be done efficiently and appropriately, and we can get some idea of the quality of our water come spring and summer of 2024 in the Three Lakes. The $950 is to the organization that runs it. There's an additional cost, not particularly great cost, for the samples to be tested at laboratories. And I think everybody wants to know what the quality of the water is in our Three Lakes, and it's well worth the expense. So does anybody else have any comments on this initial cost to remain a member of the organization?
No, I enjoy receiving that report every year.
Anybody else? Okay, I move that the Board of Trustees approve the NYS FOLA membership in the amount of $950. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Unanimous? You have that, Elizabeth? Okay. Now, the next item involves an issue that I brought up when I first became mayor, which is landscaper and tree cutter licensing. You all received a proposed draft local law, the first one of 2024, that was put together by our village attorney. There may be differing views on this board with respect to whether landscapers should be licensed, but let me just briefly describe why I made this proposal, and then we can talk about generally your thoughts on licensing, on fees, and we can decide whether we're going to move forward on this. Before I was mayor, and since I've been a resident here, I've heard stories, and I've been told by various residents that, you know, landscapers, they tend to do what they want to do, and we have code provisions that prohibit certain types of activities. And we have no enforcement mechanism other than the building inspector actually going out and looking for violations to enforce the prohibitions we have with respect to certain activities that landscapers engage in, as well as tree trimmers. For example, cutting down more than 4 trees per annum, using certain types of fertilizers, blowing leaves into the lake. And there are others that are within the code. And it is my feeling, and this is not the only village that would do that, that if we had a licensing system where the landscapers and the contractors who come into the village and make a lot of money from the village would be told, we have certain prohibitions with respect to your activities that we need you to comply with. And if you do not comply with them, there will be consequences. And if there's licensing, the consequence could be a suspension of that license if the violation of the prohibitions was found to be true. And so that's one element. The other element is that all these contractors come in with their heavy trucks and they cause a lot of wear and tear to our village roads. And with respect to a fee for the license, that fee, and it shouldn't be a very large fee, it could be a fee per truck, $50 to $100 per truck, which means that the smaller landscaper who has only one truck would pay a nominal fee. And those companies that have 10 trucks or 12 trucks would pay substantially more. There would be a fee imposed for the license, and that money could be used to maintain our village roads, which require constant attention. Most of the damage to the roads, from my perspective, and I'm not an engineer or an expert, comes from the heavy vehicles that travel across our roads, not the passenger vehicles that most of the residents have. So it is my belief, and it is my hope, that we can institute a system that this draft is not necessarily perfect because there are some issues with it, but that we can put forward a draft law and we can vote on that draft law, which will put these landscapers and tree cutters on notice that we have certain rules and we want them to follow the rules. And if they don't, there will be consequences, and they will pay a nominal fee for the privilege of being able to serve the residents in this community. And that's my position on it. Now I'll open the floor to Deputy Mayor and the trustees as to how you feel about landscaper licensing generally. And then we can talk about the specific provisions in the draft law that was prepared by the village attorney.
Well, question is enforcement now, John. do you know how, how do we regulate if they bring in fertilizers we don't want or, because of the reservoir?
And because of the number of, the quantity of activity that occurs, just truck traffic in general, we really do not have a good accountability for what materials come in. We don't, and there's no practical way to keep track of every truck. From time to time, I've sent letters to some of the lawn doctor, the Green Thumb companies, to remind them that they should not be bringing certain materials into the village. But that's very random as I find out of things and as I see different trucks. But on a day-to-day basis, we really don't have, immediate control over what comes into the village.
But even if we were to find a landscaper in violation of the current code, then there's no consequence, is there? I mean, there's no fines set up, or
We would have to bring that person to court.
there would be a fine?
We haven't done it, or we very rarely have done it. It's very hard to figure out sometimes who has cut the trees after the fact. We do have some provisions that allow people not only to cut down live trees, but if there's hazardous trees, we've allowed them to be cut down. But if we don't, unless we see it in the act, it's very, very hard to enforce, obviously.
So it seems.
I don't think this changes it. I mean, the core issue is this is an incremental cost which gets passed on to the residents of the community. I've had people come to me and say, this is an extra cost, right? And some people have said, what happens if I hire somebody to do my garden, right? I mean, it's just, a person coming in 2 or 3 times. So, I look at this and we have the letter from someone who said that the existing laws are already stricter than the proposed law, right? So we have a lot of discussion. I guess my belief is the rules are pretty clear, fertilizer and stuff. Neighbors are very aware. And from my perspective, if you're going to do it, if an organization has less than 5 or 10 employees, they should be free to do it. Hire somebody to do, your garden or whatever it is. That sort of doesn't need licensing. And I don't think we need licensing generally because I don't think we got a big problem. I mean, the issue of trees has been discussed in the prior administration. And I said to me, if you're going to put a tree rule in, which currently exists, it's got to be proportional to the size of the property, right? If somebody has 50 acres and somebody has 2 acres, the requirement of 4 trees seems to be a little bit unequal. And raising that issue about adjusting for property size, or if a property's been neglected for 20 years and, is going to get cleaned up, those all can be dealt with, but they can be dealt with in existing structure. So from my perspective, we can talk about it some more, but in principle, I don't think we need another set of laws and licensing and enforcement costs, which will be prohibitive given the amount of trees, given the amount of activity that occurs with people taking care of their lawns.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're good with what we have. I don't think we need to make it more difficult to do business in this town. What we hear, like building houses and landscapers, like, why make it more difficult?
Is there some way that the landscapers, for a very nominal fee, would sign some sort of document or license, whatever you want to call it, that they understand the rules and regulations and they agree to abide by them? Because as you're saying, John, if Lawn Doctor or some of these bigger companies come in that aren't the normal people we usually see, that maybe they don't understand or know that we have these regulations because of the reservoir.
So Lindsay, I think that's actually a great, Michelle, I think it's a great idea. So you basically have, like a code of conduct, you have a small document with the rules, and anybody who wants to do work in here has to get a copy of it and sign it. I'm not not sure what we do with that, but that basically says people who are strangers, have to understand that we have a set of rules. And as you can see, some of the rules are already pretty strong.
Josh, your opinion generally on this subject?
Yeah, I like Michelle's idea. I mentioned it previously. I don't know if it's happened or not, but I do think getting the input of some of the contractors is important, just to make sure that what we're proposing is practical and enforceable. And you may get some good ideas. And I'm specifically thinking about the contractor that I've used since I've been in the village, Bill Fairclough. Bill Fairclough's been here for, gosh, I don't know, 3 decades, 4 decades. He probably knows this village better than most people on this phone, and the issues associated with it. And listen, I understand that you're talking to someone who would be impacted potentially by whatever we decide to do, but I think it's important to get that perspective. So that would be my suggestion.
So it appears that we have a divided board on the issue generally of landscape and licensing. And under those circumstances, Josh, your suggestion appears to be the middle ground at this point, which is we don't move forward, but we take this to our landscape contractors and ask them how they feel about a system where they would either sign off on a document and promise to follow the rules, or, since I would expect their reaction would be less than favorable, agree to an enforcement system and a licensing system. Does everybody?
It's interesting. I think, listen, if they're not going to take this process seriously, then shame on them. But I think what you'll find is, I would hope, I mean, if you think about what John just said, we don't have the capability of enforcing right now. We're not enforcing our rules and regulations currently, right? So what are we hoping to achieve by changing the rules and regulations? What we currently have is not being properly enforced. But I would suggest that you can probably split the contractors into companies whose livelihood depends on our community, like a Bill Fairclough, and there are others. And then, probably larger, someone mentioned lawn, whatever, I don't even know it, where, we're either inconsequential or not that important to their business. And, I would think that the contractors whose livelihood is dependent on our community are probably going to be the parties that are going to be most concerned about protecting our community. And so again, I would encourage getting their input. I think they benefit to the extent we're weeding out contractors who are breaking the rules and regulations. So I don't know if that's a go ahead.
Thanks, Josh. I think it's a good idea. I would suggest one alternative might be not to change the rules, but given the fact we have existing rules, there'd be a tiered fine structure. The first time you break a rule that we catch you, it's a $25 to $50 fine. The second time it's a $100 to $150 fine. The next time it's a $200 fine. When the person pays a fine, suddenly it means something to them. And a lot of the stuff you can't see. It's gonna be very hard to, you don't wanna have an inspector to do all this stuff. So I think, following up on your observation, right, we set a series of fines for offenses that rise sequentially. So the small person, if they do it once, they'll never do it again. A larger person is more likely to do it and ends up paying us more money.
Like that idea. So John, we don't have fines set, correct?
No,
But
the
we-
village code does not have a definitive fine structure.
So I think that would be, Jared, that would have to be a new law that we would impose fines, and then we would leave it up to the board to set those fines on an annual basis, or, you know, whenever they want to change them, they can change them, but we have to set the law up first, correct?
That's right. I believe there's a general provision that speaks to a fine of, I think, $250 for violations. But if you were to have, you know, specific fines for specific violations, we would need to develop that schedule you're referring to, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, I think this is I think this is a very tough road to, or I just think this is going to be extremely challenging. I mean, the numbers that we all just threw around, the 250 that is part of the code now, and then Paul, your numbers, that's just not going to phase any one of these contractors. So I just.
I agree with it, but Mr. Mayor, from the perspective where we said this will require some more time to explore, maybe at the next meeting.
Yeah, I realize that there are varying views on this. I personally believe that if you have a stated enforcement system, which we really don't have now, the license, if you issue a license, person knows that if they violate the terms of that license, their license is subject to suspension. So a $25 fine without a licensing system, as Josh points out, is essentially worthless, because one, they know the odds of them being caught. We all agree we don't have the manpower to really enforce. We don't have the manpower to enforce it on everybody. It's zero. It's meaningless. But if they know that if they are caught doing something significant, they could lose the ability to do business in Tuxedo Park. That is a substantial risk to them. That's more likely to get them to be in compliance with our rules and regulations.
Okay, so I agree with everything you just said, but I would pair that with what Michelle said, because that licensing system, some big company whose Tuxedo Park business is inconsequential to them, they're not really going to care about losing their license. But if we get them to sign an agreement up front that says they agree to abide by our rules and regulations, some general counsels at that corporation is going to be careful about signing that, because if they go and violate it, we may have claims against them. So I think if you pair those two concepts, which is a licensing and which you could lose, and this, you know, and maybe those two concepts probably merge. It's probably one and the same, right? But it's just like putting people on notice that when they could lose their license, which could be consequential to a number of people, or they're subject to potential liability. The fines.
What do you mean by liability? Josh,
Well,
what do you mean by liability? I mean,
okay,
is
so
liability $250 fine for lawn doctor?
No, I'm trying to. No, I'm not talking about a $250 fine, but if you could, and you know, and maybe this just doesn't work, but if lawn doctor signs an agreement that says, for example, that they're not going to use a certain type of fertilizer, they go ahead and do it. We have evidence that they've done that, and that is somehow affecting the quality. Their actions are affecting the quality of our drinking water and creating a bunch of other issues. What I'm suggesting is I would think that they would have potential liability over and beyond, above and beyond just a simple $250 fine. And that may be a stretch, by the way. I mean, you're a former litigator, so, but
Well, yeah, I respectfully disagree. I mean, if you don't, if either you have a fine or you have a licensing system, we're not going to sue them. And I don't quite know what the cause of action is. Municipalities have licensing systems for lots of reasons. In Rockland County, all these home improvement companies are licensed, and they have to follow rules and regulations. In Orange County, we don't have a licensing system, but they have it in Westchester. There's nothing inappropriate about a municipality having a licensing system for contractors. If the issue is we don't want to charge people for the license, that's really secondary in my mind. Whether it's $50, $100 or zero, but you sign an agreement, and if you're caught violating that agreement, you may lose your right to do business in this community. That's the most important thing. I mean, the fee schedule is to get the license is really secondary, because this is not a revenue enhancement.
Right.
We're not looking to earn money on these guys. We're looking to make sure they follow the rules. And
yeah, and you're right. We're not going to sue them. I wouldn't. That's not practical.
Fertilizer that goes into the lake.
Yeah.
You're responsible for remediation, and that dwarfs any fine.
Well, that's under the DEC. Yeah, I mean, I understand that, but how many times you've been here since 1994, right? How many times have we caught a contractor using a fertilizer that polluted the lake? Zero. How many times have we caught a contractor cutting down more than 4 trees since that statute was established? I don't know how long it's been on the books.
Been on the books prior to my existence here, I believe.
Have we ever enforced that statute against any contractor?
We have tried to enforce it, but people will lie, and it's
It
hard to
never gets
enforce.
anywhere.
No, it doesn't get anywhere.
So essentially, these code provisions we have are never enforced there, and I'm trying to find a mechanism, because it's for the betterment of all of us, that these particular, and there aren't that many prohibitions, 4, 5, or 6 prohibitions that work for those prohibitions are important to our community with respect to our environment and our lakes and our trees. And I'm just trying to find the easiest way to get these contractors to obey them. And that's why I put this proposal forward.
Yeah. And I guess if you go to the lawn doctor example, even though our community may be inconsequential to their overall business, they probably are, they're going to think twice, right? Before violating an agreement that they've signed.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to call it a license. You could call it an agreement, but the penalties are the same. You'd be prohibited from working here. If the word license bothers you, it's just some system with some penalty if you violate it substantially. I mean, I'm not saying somebody commits a violation doesn't mean the license is going to be suspended, but they're going to be put on notice next time you're in trouble. But some enforcement mechanism to get people to obey our environmental laws.
Yeah, I think, let me suggest the remaining piece is, if Jared is aware of any laws that cover this area that he think may be relevant, he forward them to us and we table it to next month.
Well, that's fine. But I asked Jared when he drafted this to look at the licensing codes for the various villages in Nassau County. Is that correct, Jared? I mean, is that what you used as a template?
That's correct. And it's not uncommon for villages to have these kinds of licensing regulations for landscapers, in our experience.
Okay. All right. So what do you want from them, Paul?
No, I think if we've done it, I think it requires time for us to think about it a little more constructively. We have a whole spectrum of things. The act of enforcement is a hugely expensive proposition, which may not be worth it because it may not be that big a problem. Right? Somebody cuts down an extra tree, trees grow, right? You know, or if it's been clearing a piece of property or, and, you know, whatever it is. I mean, I think we need to spend a little more time on it, but why don't we try to finish
Okay.
today's meeting?
All right, well, we'll table it for this month and we'll mull it over.
Can I
Right.
just say, I'm sorry to interrupt, just because it feels like the conversation is coming to an end. I know sometimes it's hard for you to see there when people have their hand raised, but the police chief did have his hand raised for quite a while. So I don't know if he wants to pop in and comment on this or not. Just want to give him a chance.
Oh, okay, sure, chief. You have any thoughts on this, this issue?
Well, I put up my hand, it was a while ago when you were discussing, you know, the contractors, knowing the regulations. I just wanted to, just to let you guys know, Mayor McFadden had us every year for the past 4 years since I've been there. Every spring, we hand the contractors, paper at the booth. And, you know, it has all the rules in there of, you know, what pesticides they can use and, you know, the times that they can work and things of that nature. So the contractors can't say, oh, I didn't know, because they have been informed of the rules. But again, that brings us to the enforcement aspect, that the only thing that we really can enforce is, you know, working after hours, and we've enforced that quite a bit. But other than that, you know, I really don't have any help for you with the enforcement part, because I think it's a code enforcement issue.
Okay. All right, thank you, chief. All right, we're getting to the end here, folks. At least for the public session. The next item on the agenda, when we did the reorganization meeting in October, early October, we left the budget director position vacant. Trustee Shaw, who served for a number of years in that position, was unavailable, and we just didn't have somebody with the requisite skills to handle it. And as I mentioned, with respect to Munistat and public financing, we now have a skilled member of the board who understands budgets. And based upon that, I nominate, let me just get the, I would nominate Deputy Mayor Lindsay to serve as the budget director for the balance of the year. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Shaw. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Congratulations. I don't know if it's a job you want, but it's a job you got. All right. And the last item on the agenda of new business involves our old police vehicle, which surprisingly has garnered a bid of, is it $8,200, Chief?
I thought it was 8,500.
Oh, okay. All right. So let me just fill that in. I don't know if anybody's seen the inside of that car, which has been sitting at the DPW lot for several months, but it's not a vehicle I'd want to drive. So I think $8,500 is wonderful. So I move that the Board of Trustees accept the bid for the police vehicle on Auctions International in the amount of $8,500. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Brooke. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Unanimous. Good luck with that. Okay. Audit of claims. Village
Yeah, again, I don't have that information because the accounting system is down temporarily, and there are no budget transfers again because I don't have access to the information.
All right. So we're at the closing comment section. Is there any member of the public who would like a second opportunity to speak on any issue they deem to be important? First, in the room, anybody here like to speak again? Okay, on Zoom, anybody have their hand raised who would like to address anything that they believe is appropriate at this point in time? Do we have any hands up, John?
No.
No hands up. Okay, trustee comments. Deputy Mayor Lindsay, anything you'd like to add?
Nothing further, thank you.
Trustee Brooke?
Nope.
Trustee Shaw?
Yes, I have a letter from retired Chief of Police Bortnowski that he asked me to read out loud. Open letter to the community of Tuxedo Park, a heartfelt tribute to Chief David Conklin's remarkable legacy, posted on TPA FYI also. Dear Chief David Conklin, as you embark on a well-deserved retirement, I am compelled to express my deepest gratitude for your unwavering commitment and exceptional leadership during your tenure as Chief of Police for the Village of Tuxedo Park. Throughout the past 4 years, under your guidance and with the steadfast support of former mayor and trustees, you have not only steered the police department through a transformative journey, but also elevated it to new heights of professionalism and efficiency. Your dedication to modernizing every aspect of the department has left an indelible mark, creating a cohesive and high-functioning unit with morale and efficiency at its core. Your vision and strategic initiatives have established a 24-hour police department staffed by a team of New York State certified and highly trained police officers. This accomplishment ensures that the residents of Tuxedo Park can rest assured that they are protected by best-in-class professionals dedicated to safeguarding life and property. Your outstanding service has not only benefited the department, but also has had a profound impact on the community. The legacy you leave behind is one of excellence, integrity, and a commitment to the well-being of the residents you've served. As you enter this new chapter of your life, I extend my heartfelt thanks and best wishes to you and your family. May your retirement be filled with joy, fulfillment, and success you brought to the Village of Tuxedo Park. With deepest respect, William Bortnowski, retired Chief of Police, Tuxedo Park from 1976-2002.
Thank you. Any comments, Josh? Okay. The next item, I make a motion that we enter executive session to discuss personnel matters, among other things. Do I have a second? Second by Trustee Brooke. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. Folks, that concludes for now the public session. We're going to go into executive session. We will come out of executive session before we adjourn the meeting. And if there are any resolutions, we will vote on those resolutions that emanate from from the executive session. Thank you for attending, and thank you for all your comments. How do you do?
We're back in the meeting.
We're back in. I hereby move to adjourn the meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
Wait, don't we have to, let's vote on the water thing. Don't we
Oh,
have to do
we
that?
don't-
No. Jared's gonna write language.
We're not ready
okay.
for that, unfortunately. On to the next month for that. I move we adjourn the meeting at 9:46 p.m. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Brooke. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Good evening, everyone.
Good night, everybody. Thank you, Jared.
Good night.
Bye.